So today what I want to be going over with you is something called small intestinal bowel overgrowth. It's also now called, they call it Sibo, but some other people call it small intestinal microbial environment. So bottom line is this. You have the stomach, small intestine, large intestine. Inside the large intestine, we have massive amounts of bacteria that live inside of us. If there's a good balance, it's called your microbiome. And if it's out of balance, it's called dysbiosis. And although we have an amount of this bacteria in the small intestine, it's a much smaller amount in the small intestine. But many times, due to various different reasons, the bacteria translocates, which means it moves from the large intestine into the small intestine. And now we've got a problem there, because we've got good guys, but in the wrong place. On top of that, we may have an abnormal amount of bad guys as well, plus the good guys in the wrong place. And what that creates over a time frame is a lot of issues, especially gastrointestinal issues, digestion and absorption issues over a time frame. So the large intestine has massive amounts of this bacteria, and the small intestine has much less of it. And certain amounts of this bacteria should not get into the small intestine. So over a time frame, how we destroy bacteria is by our stomach acid and also bile and enzymes destroy bacteria so that they don't come through you. We also have to have good movement of the tube from your mouth chewing down the esophagus, through the stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and then out with proper bowel movements at least twice a day. If the peristaltic movement is slowed down, and there can be various reasons, but one of the reasons why it's slowed down is that we're seeing the brain not working optimally. A lot of reasons why people are constipated is not a gastrointestinal tube problem, it's the brain not working properly. But also over a time frame, what that does is it causes a lot of bacteria to hang in the system, and it shouldn't. And then over a time frame, what happens is it can put a lot of pressure on your ileocecal valve. That valve is what separates the ileum, the bottom portion of the small intestine, to your large intestine. And over a time frame, if the valve doesn't shut or is weak, then what happens is the bacteria just move from the large intestine into the small intestine. They create all types of issues. And again, another thing that can create low peristaltic activity, which is the movement of the muscle, as well as a leaky valve, is the brain breaking down. So why we see this problem happen with the Sibo or the SIMO is basically a few things. Stress is a big one. And we want to be clear here on stress. There's three different types of stressors. There's mental emotional stress, and that's what everyone thinks of when we think of stress. And that is a big issue for why you may start to see breakdowns in this peristaltic movement and also with the weak ileocecal valve. But also what you want to know is as the brain breaks down, stress immediately goes up. 90% of the output of the brain goes to the autonomic nervous system, and 90% of that should be in a parasympathetic rest and relaxation state, and only 10% should be sympathetic or a stress state. If the brain starts to break down, immediately the stress response goes up. So you may be 50-50, and even though you may have no mental emotional stress, your system is in a stress reaction because the brain is breaking down. A weakened immune system can cause this issue as well. Lower gastric acid, so you're not producing enough hydrochloric acid. The only acid that we require to be healthy is hydrochloric acid released by your parietal cells. And there's various different reasons why you may not be releasing enough hydrochloric acid. It could just be your age, but it's usually that you're doing some things wrong. You may also even have a direct autoimmune attack on the parietal cells and you don't release the hydrochloric acid. And if you don't release the hydrochloric acid, then bad guys get to make it through the gastrointestinal system. And it can create all kinds of problems. Plus, you don't get proper digestion. And then again, we talked about irregular peristalsis. The other thing that happens is this also, is certain foods that we may consider good are not good if you're having this problem. Because they're good if we don't have a SIBO problem. If we have the proper bacteria in the large intestine and the proper bacteria in the small intestine, then these foods would be considered good. But in someone with SIBO, they're not. So sugars, grains, certain legumes, all dairy products, high fructan vegetables, certain vegetables, high starch vegetables, and certain fruits are not good for this problem. And although these are considered to be good foods, they're not good for you. And the people that eat these, they get all types of gastrointestinal distress, and over a time frame then what happens is you create, because you're not digesting these foods and you have the improper fermentation, which is the breakdown of the food, you build up these gases. And the buildup of the gas can turn out to be constipation or diarrhea or both, where they can go back and forth all day long. So irritable bowel syndrome is nothing more than this. So over a time frame, we have to identify, do you have this or not? We also can go over certain exercises to help you with digestive motility that you can do at home. Plus, you may need brain-based care that we provide here. Again, that receptor. We stimulate the receptors wherever we find the weakness based on our testing. And then lastly, we're going to give you a certain list of foods that are really important. And you want to eat these foods because they calm the system down. And then you may also, and likely will also, need certain nutrients. And the nutrients that we provide are there to assist in allowing things to work properly. So I hope you found this helpful. And if we think that you have SIBO, we will let you watch this video, and then we will probably be putting you on certain nutrients. If you've been ever told in the past that you have irritable bowel syndrome, or you notice, hey, every time I eat certain fruits or vegetables or things that are considered to be good, or I just get crazy in the middle here, and then you may have alternating constipation to diarrhea. So hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, let us know. Thank you.